I've recently finished my Delta, and I managed to invite this group of teachers, my friends who took Delta Module 2 with me in Istanbul, in Turkey. And in the second part of this interview, we're going to be talking about the experience of Delta Module 2 in comparison to the other Delta modules, as some of us have already finished all the 3 modules. We're also going to discuss the difference from the experience you have with the Celta and the one you have with the Delta, what should be in the middle, in the pathway towards the Delta. And in the last part, the second part of the interview, we will be talking about the expectations, whether or not the course that we paid for and that we took met our expectations. So if you want to know more about it, please watch the video to the end.
Compared to the other modules, have you all taken the other 2 modules or one of the other modules? Do you feel that module 2 it's more challenging or easier than the other 2?
I would say I liked module 2 the most out of all 3 modules, but whether that's because of the actual module itself or because I was fortunate enough to do it intensively rather than trying to do my full-time management job on the side. But I have found myself kind of using nearly all of the knowledge that I learned from module 2 in my current position. So as these guys know, I'll occasionally throw stuff into the group chat being like, do you remember what the tutor said about that thing? And it's really because like I'm about to go into a meeting with a teacher and I want to like bring it up, you know? So I think the things that I learned from module 2 have felt much more immediately applicable to my role as like a teacher trainer, especially whether I'm designing workshops or giving observation feedback for teachers. Whereas I'm pretty sure I've forgotten most of the things from modules 1 and 3, not only because I did them several years ago, but because the format of it, I think was, I don't know, I liked what do we describe module 2 as kind of this, it covers a lot of topics, but then it's also very practical because you have to link all of the theoretical knowledge to your one class, your students. And I like that kind of wide, but also practical approach to learning.
Yeah, sure. I've completed the Delta. It's my diploma right here. Worked bloody hard for that. The thing is that, modules 1 and 3, doing it distance, like, we could chop it up every now and again and talk about how tough it was. But module 2, just incredibly intense. However, going back into my new role, and I find myself applying all kinds of stuff that I learned, like I've got like this binder, it's like this thick, full of stuff that we did. And I will go through it every now and again. There's like lesson plans, there's like all kinds of stuff here. Last night there was something in the group chat. I had a look, still couldn't find it. There's probably more out there somewhere. Definitely get it done.
Well, I have module 1 under my belt, and module 3 is currently kicking my ass. So I'm really trying. Module 1, I did self-study. It was absolutely terrible, but I got it done. Module 3, again, self-study by choice. And you can tell the difference. I mean, M2 was extremely intensive, but there was also a lot of support out there, which really helped. M3, I'm kind of on my own. Of course, there is the support of the group chat now that I know all of you, but it's still, there's just the practicalities of M2 that are more useful and just more, let's say, memorable. Even though, all of them are useful. I feel like I would have had a much more difficult time without M1, for example. If I just started with M2, that would have been difficult. But yes, it is a challenge when you don't have that kind of support network as we did.
Just like Remy, I've got module 1, not 3 yet. For me, like I believe since what we did on module 2 was practical, we actually used it on the course. This might come off more practical in life where we use it. However, for me, it was a bit more different. I don't know, maybe it's me, maybe the context where I work in. Where I come from, no one really knows what Delta is. I've never been asked about my qualifications, and the more courses I take part in, I get executive roles rather than teaching roles. No matter how loudly I shout, my specialism is in teaching, but the other perspective, like for me, module 2 was not all about teaching and everything I've learned, but how it was applied. So how they dealt with the recording of the sessions with anxiety, different participants, how they conducted it, the emails, atmosphere. For me, I learned from these factors as well. For me, module 2, yes, so far it's been the most practical one, but not solely in terms of teaching knowledge, but how it was conducted.
To me, Will and I, we did the whole thing together. We did module 1 together, then we did module 3, but we had different specialisms. Seriously, I think that the one that I enjoyed the most was module 1. I think I love the experience of studying and having the support group, having people with me. That was a lot of fun. But I do think that pretty much everything you learn in module 2 is very practical, and you do apply that to your classroom. And I love that. I think it's great. But to me, I think that I felt that I learned more during module 1. I think the learning curve was somehow greater. While I was studying for module 1, there was just so much of information that I was just not really familiar with. So, and it was just all so interesting, and then just so much that I started studying for module 1, and I was like, oh, okay, so that's why I do that in the classroom. So you find yourself making sense of all these different concepts in different areas, plus things that you just have no knowledge of. Like I didn't know a bunch of concepts in regards to this course, in regards to assessment. So it was while I was studying for module 1 that they made sense to me. And also that breaking point when you just realize, wow, I really have to learn more about it. And there is no end to this. Like we got to keep it going. So you get that thirst for knowledge, a never-ending thirst for knowledge. So, I just love it. I really enjoyed all the modules. I really like module 3 as well. And then module 2 was the one, you get to hang out with all these pals, and it's great. So I love all of them. And I think I learned more during module 1.
Well, I mean, module 1 is like the foundation that you need to build everything else onto. It's really difficult to go on to 2 and 3 without it. So it's reasonable. But then 2 is where you learn how to actually apply all of this to your teaching.
That is interesting. I felt the same way when studying for module 1, because most of my knowledge up to that point was very haphazardly distributed and collected from webinars and talks and teachers' conferences, but never in a formal, systematically organized way. And then studying for module 1 helped put things in boxes, just like you were saying, Walter. I agree. I think the learning curve in module 1 is more intense. Maybe because we go from basic to intermediate, and then we get to intermediate plateau. Maybe that's why, but discussion for another day, perhaps.
I think that might also happen because I was coming from CELTA, and then you would imagine that the CELTA is kind of difficult to compare, but I think you go from the CELTA and then there is no intermediate level. You just go to the Delta, which is very advanced. So there's something of a gap in there. So I think that makes things difficult. If you're not prepared, if you don't know anything about the Delta and you're coming from the CELTA 1 year after you're already taking the Delta, you will feel the gap, really.
And did the course meet your expectations?
Yes. For me, I went into the course with not very specific expectations. I really just wanted to improve and upgrade my teaching skills. However, one thing for me was that since my CELTA, as I just explained earlier, all I was offered was executive roles. So there wasn't much teaching happening between my CELTA and my Delta. And even now after Delta, I'm doing my best to teach, but I'm offered different positions. So for me...
Well, send them to me then, these positions. I'd love to have them.
it's bitter and sweet. Like on the one hand, like you feel like you're very capable, but on the other hand, you're not using what you're good at. So I don't know to what extent Delta helped me with my managerial skills. I was hoping more for an improvement in my teaching skills, but HR, dealing with people and planning strategies. I have no idea how. For some non-obvious reason, I get improved in these areas. I learned a lot, like the philosophy of studying how to go and how to do research, how to do critical thinking, and how to analyze yourself or performance. I wouldn't even consider student feedback prior to Delta. And then when for my RNA and for some of our feedback forms and for the experimental, I had to ask for their feedback. I just realized, no, their opinion does matter, and it matters the most, because the way I had to form questions, that was the key. The real skill is to form a neutral question in a way that you get the data that you needed. So in such skill sets, in these regards, I believe I've learned a lot. In a way, it really did benefit me, but not up to a point that I had that certain expectation, and I got that.
I see. And have you Delta Module 3? You can take it in school management. Yeah, is it your plan to write Module 3 into school management?
Yes, a language institute management. Like recently, I was offered the position of a CEO of a language institute. It's pretty big, more than 2,500 students. So I have access to a big database, but I don't know what happens. Like I saw Will's certificate. It doesn't show that your module 3 was in ELT management. It just says module 3, if I'm correct. For personal preferences, if I know my specialism is somewhere else, probably. So maybe I give that a shot.
Bruno, can you repeat the question?
Yes. Did the course meet your expectations?
Oh, met and exceeded. I mean, I expected to be a better teacher after this, but I didn't realize quite to what extent, because we all have had quite a few years of experience before going into this. So we would think that, I'm a competent enough teacher. And then you go into the course and you realize that there is much more left to learn. So definitely the course has offered me some insights that I never would have imagined.
Yeah, it's a very humbling experience, Delta, isn't it?
It really is. You realize that you know nothing.
And to answer the question anyway, it exceeded my expectations. I went into this and I was very much afraid, because I really trusted the institution that I had done the other modules, so Distance Delta, International House. And then I was like, ooh, I'm really scared of not, because the other two worked out well for me. Yeah, I'm gonna go and do this there, and it's much more affordable. And I was like, yeah, what about the quality? And then I sought advice, talked to my CELTA tutor, and said, okay, what do you think about this? And then he just told me, I think you've done the other modules. You should trust that you have, the competence to do this. You're going to be fine. And plus, you see their numbers on the internet. If you check like the numbers of people passing in each country. So the number is pretty good in Turkey. So I was like, okay, so I guess we can do this over there, and that's going to be fine. And plus, I'm going to save a lot of money. So yeah, I'm going to go for it, right? And then I talked to Will. We decided Turkey together, right, Will?
We did.
But to me, totally exceeded my expectations. I love my tutors. I really like the school. I love the students. And also it was the experience of teaching Turkish students that was very nice. I really liked that.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Before I went over, spoke to a few teachers who'd done Module 2. They told me 3 things. It will change you as a teacher. It's the hardest you'll ever work, and you'll smash it. And all 3 of those things happened.
For me, I would say that I had certain expectations going into the course, and then the course ended up being very different from what I had thought, but actually it worked out for the better that way. Because these guys know, like I set like pretty high standards for myself in my own like teaching and what I can produce and do. I was also like all of you, humbled by the course. But again, what I said earlier about the things I've taken away from the course, and just noticing how I've been applying everything I picked up from module 2 in my teacher training and in my teacher management now. So like, I mean, Hamid, I would say I would be someone in a similar position as you. Like, for some reason, I'm just not going back into teaching for now. So yeah, what we learned from module 2 still kind of has a positive effect on people as managers, especially those who are focused on professional development for their teaching team and having CELTA or Delta standards for teaching performance.
I see.
So this was the second part of the interview with the teachers. There's one more coming up. But if you want to know more about Delta, click on this link over here, learn more about Delta Module 1. And if you want to know more about the CELTA, then you can click over here. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.